All right, so I'm here with Kimberley Howe, the executive director of ThrillerFest. Kim, how you doing?
Fantastic. Great to join you today, Ryan.
Thank you for coming on. This year's awesome. You guys have been doing ThrillerFest for a long time. This is the first time it is going virtual.
Yeah, we have a history of 15 years. We started the very first Thriller Fest was in Phoenix, Arizona, and since then it's been in New York City. But due to COVID this year, we had to basically pivot the last minute and create a brand new conference basically out of thin air. And it's been a lot of fun, a lot of hard work, and I really hope everyone out there is going to enjoy it.
How fast did all this come together from what you would normally have planned to do with right there in New York City, right, to throwing it all into like the virtual blender and trying to get something that people could still partake in? How daunting of a task was that, and how quickly did it come together for you?
Well, we canceled with the Hyatt, where we hold the conference in late April. And so I basically just, one night was thinking, what can we do to make this year special? And I said to myself, every year we're very lucky. As you know, we have great guests. Some of the top thriller writers in the world are kind enough to come to New York City to join us. But this year I said, with everyone home, maybe we can do something really special and reach out to all the thriller authors across the globe and see if they're willing to do, some sessions with us so that we could have more big names than we've ever had before. And I'm actually almost emotional at the response we've received, the enthusiasm and the support that the community has given us.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's no doubt it's ThrillerFest is always great, right? This is like epic. This is not throwing it together. This is really taking it to the next level. When you said big name authors, people who can look at the list and they can see it on my site, The Real Books By. It's anyone who's anyone in the genre. It's absolutely incredible. I am most excited about Mega Virtual Craft Fest. Can you just tell people what that is real quick?
Absolutely, right. So at Thriller Fest, we love educating people about writing and delving into, as a fan, let's say delving into a writer's life. How do they work? What kind of writing do they do, when? And so what we decided to do was pair up thriller authors from around the globe and have them in discussions about their craft. So if you're a thriller writer or perhaps an aspiring author, you're going to get lots of amazing tips. And if you're a thriller enthusiast, you're going to see basically inside a writer's life.
And some of these names, I'm going to talk about a few pairings if you don't mind. A couple ones that I know I'm excited about, I think that Books By followers would be excited about. You've got Steve Berry and Dan Brown, a couple of guys that know how to beat headlines, right? Dan Brown from writing Inferno, well before anything like COVID ever happened or so on and so forth. These guys sort of make a living reading the tea leaves and writing books about it before these things actually happen.
Absolutely. And the history, I can just picture maybe perhaps what their workplaces would look like, their libraries. I picture something very dark and moody and historical.
Yeah, that's going to be a great one. I can't wait to see that one.
Do you outline?
Oh, absolutely.
Do you outline ahead of yourself, or do you try to do all of it?
I outline the entire novel. I often write the last scene first.
Okay.
Yeah, I will usually write the finale first, such that I at least know where I'm going. In very, very simple terms, if I had an idea for a story, I would say, you would have a location and a theme, and you'd say, what's the big scene I see at the end? And I'd write it, knowing that it'll probably change, but that's more or less what I'm thinking. And then I'll take those characters and I will rewind and take them as far away from that moment as I can, not in time, but physically and emotionally.
Another good one, you have a couple guys that I know, Books By readers will be real familiar with these names, Brad Taylor and Mark Graney.
Yes. Now, at Thriller Fest last year, I had the pleasure of being the thriller panel master for a gunfighters panel, and I had Mark and Brad on that. And I'm telling you, the shell casings were everywhere. I was ducking for cover, and it was really a hot panel.
Those guys know their way around an action sequence for sure. I'm a huge fan of both of them. I sort of love Mark last year did his first book in first person. That was really fun. Brad Taylor killed off a long-time character in his series. That was big. Those guys, for me, sort of represent the next wave of major thriller writers. when you go back to the late 90s, early 2000s, you had everyone from Lee Child to Vince Flynn to Brad Thor. Daniel Silva was starting out then. They're all, have successful series still going today, right? It was a few years later, you had guys like Mark and Brad come along, and they've really represented kind of like the new blood, the next wave. And that's going to be a fantastic talk. I can't wait to see that one.
Let's talk a little bit about not physically going to the locations, because we have to do that too. Yeah. I've never been to North Korea, but I've written about it a couple of times.
Right. Yeah, I actually, for my first book, One Rough Man, a lot of it takes place in Guatemala. And I've never set foot in Guatemala. And some of the best emails I get are, "Whoa, you really captured Guatemala." Yeah. Like, holy moly, I never actually went there.
Yeah.
And so that's just a ton of, reading and everything else, trying to figure it out. And Google Maps, I mean, I don't know how people in the old days used to write without Google Maps, because, you could pull that stuff up. Google Earth, I've got that thing is. Yeah.
There's actually something I found when I was writing this book, Gunmetal Gray, a few years ago, which all took place in Asia. And I've been to Hong Kong and Beijing, but this involved Thailand. And basically, I really wanted to go on a vacation in Vietnam and Thailand. So I planned a book around it. And a couple weeks or 4 weeks or something before I would have gone on the trip, I found out I had to have ankle surgery. So I had to scuttle all that.
That's right.
Write the book from my couch. But I actually, doing research on the locations, there was a website, and I don't know if it's still around, and it's called like Walking In, and then whatever the name of the city is. So Walking In. Walking In there. And it's literally just some dude, and I don't think it's the same person. I think other people just put it in. And they just have a camera going, and they'll walk for an hour just through streets in downtown Hanoi.
And I tell you, for the writers that are watching this, that's the backpackers are the biggest reference source you can have as a writer, because they all blog and they all take pictures, and they all. I'll give an example for Hunter Killer. We were on a cable car going up to Sugarloaf Mountain and all this, and we were doing it as a tourist thing, my wife and I. And I never planned on using it. Well, then in the book, I was like, holy moly, that's a perfect spot for this thing. I can use it. I didn't take any pictures or anything. Right. Turns out there's a bunch of backpackers who do. Yeah. And they had the entire cable car ride videoed, everything. Yeah. And backpacking blogs are really good.
So another one I'm personally thrilled about, you have Peter James with George R.R. Martin.
Yes, and I can imagine all the Game of Thrones fans just absolutely beside themselves to hear George. We were very lucky in 2018 to have George R.R. Martin come join us at the conference, and spending time with him was just so special. He's a very down-to-earth, funny guy, big baseball fan, likes to, joke around. And so having him, join us was extra special. And the fact that he's willing to, join us for virtual ThrillerFest is incredibly special to us.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, if you can tell, I'm a huge fan of George Martin. I love Game of Thrones. I got a couple swords behind me from the show. I know there's people like me that are Googling George Martin, Game of Thrones, updates several times a week, trying to see what's going on. He's sort of been locked away writing. Now they're going to get to see him actually talk books with another great author. It's going to be a really, really awesome event. I can't wait to see that one.
Yeah, because Peter James is one of my favorite authors as well. Super nice guy. Writes a series about D.I. Roy Grace, based, in the UK. And if you haven't read Peter, please do. He also has standalone novels. He has one of the best voices I've ever heard in the business.
Yeah, he's really good. So that's another, really, really awesome pairing that you guys came up with. I can't wait to see that one.
Do you have a favorite book you've written, and why?
I think when I finish A Song of Ice and Fire, this giant 7-volume mega series, that will be my favorite book. That will be my magnum opus. But I'm not finished it yet, so I don't want to kind of jinx it by naming that one as my favorite. I have to stick the ending. So of the books that I've actually published and are complete, maybe Fever Dream, my historical vampire novel set in 1857, antebellum Mississippi River.
Another headliner that you guys have, Alifair Burke with Michael Connolly. They're doing a video together. How'd you get that one set up?
It's pretty exciting, especially since, the Bosch series on TV has been so monumental. I'm absolutely gripped to it. I wish we could watch the next season now. And Alifair, of course, she is a brilliant author, very talented, and does a lot of very unique things with her writing. So I think their discussions are quite good friends, actually. And so I think that's what we tried to do, too, was have pairings of people who connect, who have a great chemistry. So that not only will you learn about writing, but you're going to be entertained and watch, writers have fun together. It's kind of a lonely business, being a writer, because you're working, at your computer alone quite a bit. So bringing people together like this is going to be very special.
One of the things I think all my writer friends have told me is that they've been social distancing their whole careers. So this wasn't that big a change for them with what you just said. So Alifair Burke, Michael Connelly, another great pairing. People are going to want to watch that one for sure.
How did you get into that routine of writing very late at night? Because I had that in part of my life, and then I flipped in the last, 15, probably since I had a kid, or my wife had a kid, I've shifted to real early starts of writing.
Well, I can't always do very late at night, but when a book is close to done, what I would normally do is I would leave, essentially, and go stay somewhere else. And we're lucky enough that we have a place in the city and a place outside the city. So if I'm out here by myself, I completely shift my hours, and I'll stay up till 3 a.m. and sleep till nearly noon the next day, and I can do that forever. That's my natural state, I think.
Okay, Kim, you talked about putting people together that know each other or are good together. You had Ken Follett, I heard.
Yeah, it was. I can't even express how special that opportunity was. I'm a huge fan of Ken Follett. When I was a kid, I was reading Eye of the Needle and his spy thrillers, and that actually was a huge inspiration to me to want to write this genre because of how well Ken wrote it. And Ken came as our thriller master actually back in 2010, and I had the chance to meet him and talk to him and his lovely wife Barbara. And so I reached out to him to see if there was any way that he would spend some time with us talking about his craft. And I think Ken is one of the most eloquent and intelligent writers out there, especially about being able to stand back and analyze his craft. And so I think there's a lot of special moments that people will really enjoy when they listen to the interview.
So whether you're a fan or an aspiring writer, new author, whatever, you definitely want to check that one out.
Can you talk about pacing for a few minutes?
Well, yes. It was a big problem for me in the early days. My early books, which were not successful, by the way, my early unsuccessful books were all very short, and I wrote them too quickly. When I finally resolved that problem in my own technique, I wrote a bestseller, which was Eye of the Needle. And people often say to me, well, how is Eye of the Needle different from the other 10 books that nobody had been interested in? And it was in my technique. First of all, I planned that book in detail, and I realized while writing it that for me anyway, the plan was key to writing a good story.
Okay, lastly, speaking of pairings, I hit the lotto this year. I got put with
CJ Box.
Yeah, and anyone who has followed me at all on the Books by knows that's my favorite living author. I was pretty stoked. Funny story, I don't know if we're supposed to tell this or not, but we actually shot our interview and something was wrong on the technical side. And of course, everyone teased me that I sabotaged it to get to do another interview with my hero. So that is going to be a fun one, I can promise, especially people that are reading the Books by and have followed me at all. But definitely if you love his series. And if you're not reading him, start. First of all, he is absolutely terrific. I think he's writing the best series right now, regardless of genre. His Joe Pickett series is my favorite. So that was a whole lot of fun.
Yeah, actually, I just wanted to say a little comment about that one. I've known Ryan for many years now, and he's always so generous with everyone, trying to go out of their way to help authors and everyone, publicists. And so I wrote, CJ Box and asked him, is there any chance we could surprise Ryan and have him interview you? And, as a longtime fan, and as you said, such a enthusiastic one. It was pretty special to be able to put the two of you together. And sadly, there isn't any video evidence of the first time you ever spoke to him, but it'll be in your memory forever, I hope.
It was a dream come true for sure. I mean, the funniest part for me was, and I think some people might appreciate this, I think you and I know different authors, they might go by a different name than what you see on the cover of their book, right? And so I wasn't aware. Some people that know him or been to book signings or seen his events, they know that he pretty much goes by Chuck. That went right over my head somehow, even on this huge fan. And I remember the day that you told me that you were going to put me with Chuck, and you sounded excited. I knew I should be excited, but my first thought was, who's Chuck? And when you said CJ Box, I was through the roof. We had a lot of fun with the first one. I get to do it again, so that's even more fun. But yeah, I promise that was an interview that's a lot of fun to do, and I hope people check that out and enjoy that as well. Your last book, Long Range, came out earlier this year. That's a 20th Joe Pickett novel that you've written. Did you ever think, when the first one came back, I think it was 2001, Open Season, did you ever think back then you'd still be writing Joe Pickett novels like 2 decades later?
No, I never even imagined it. When I wrote that first novel way back, it took, 20 years when I first conceived of it to when it finally got published, and a lot of things happened in between. But I was always thinking that I always wanted to write a book, whether fiction or nonfiction, centered in Wyoming, where I'm from, that captured, I hoped, the culture and the landscape and the issues of the area in modern times. And that book later became Open Season, which, came out in 2001. And it was called Joe Pickett. I was not thinking of a series. I joke that, the whole world was just waiting for a Wyoming game warden series, and I'm the one who could finally deliver it.
Okay, Kim, outside virtual Mega Craft Fest, there's still a lot of other stuff going on for ThrillerFest this year. You guys have masterclass and pitch and consulting sessions. You're going to do Career Fest, I think, right? Thriller Awards. Can you talk about some of those things?
Oh, I'd be delighted. I'm really excited. So if you've always wanted to write a book and you've started one and you're passionate about thrillers, we have something called Masterclass, and that is 10 or fewer students with a New York Times bestselling author. For example, Mark Greaney is teaching this year, which I'm pretty excited about because I have such a enthusiasm for his work. And so basically, we're converting it to a virtual thing by having it on Zoom. So you'll be in a Zoom room with a small group of people and Mark, and you'll be working with 8 hours together on your work, submitting 10 pages, and talking about how you can improve your writing. So that is a very, very special moment. I mean, you can imagine, Ryan, the opportunity, and Karen Dion and a whole bunch of other authors are also offering, to teach their time, to volunteer their time to teach, which is very, very special.
Yeah, I mean, again, if you're a new or aspiring author and you're looking for some direction or, someone that's done it and walked those fires already to give you, some advice, you can't do better than the names that you just said, for sure.
And then when it comes to Career Fest, we have 5 sessions that are focused intensely on the business of writing. So you're going to learn from the top editors in this field, the top agents in this field. We're bringing in a book marketing expert to talk about, how you can message the book better. We're bringing in a couple of other people who are experts are getting the word out about books. And we should be bringing in the real books by, right? And as well, we want to focus on teaching you how to write, but then taking it to the next level and getting you an agent. So how do we do that? We have pitch and consulting sessions. The pitch sessions are where you get a chance to pitch your book online this year. Normally it's not, to an agent or editor. And there's some incredible agents and editors participating in this. And they can ask for pages. And so it could be the start of a dream career for you. And the consulting side of it is basically you'll send in a small sample of your writing, a synopsis, and a query letter. And an expert, someone that's an editor or, book doctor, will talk to you about your writing and give you some pointers on how you can improve it so that before you send in, your submission to an agent, it's going to be in the best possible shape that it can be.
It's a super valuable tool for new writers to come in and hear some of this stuff, especially if you've been writing alone and no one's really seen your work. You're not sure if it's even ready to go out. This is definitely the time, I think, you should partake. Get some eyes on your work. Everyone always says you can't self-edit, and it's true, you can't. You need someone else to look at that and let you know if it's ready to go, and that's a huge opportunity for new writers, especially ones that can't make it to New York, to finally partake virtually this year. I love it. I think that's so awesome. And then you guys sort of end with the Thriller Awards this year, right?
Yeah, sure. I just wanted to mention before we dive into Thriller Awards that we also have a debut author presentation. So, like I said, we talk about the track, right? We start when you don't have an agent and you're new to writing. We teach you the skills to write. We get you an agent, then we try and hopefully get you sold, and then you become a debut author, and we support you then and basically try and shepherd you through the process to hopefully break out and be the next Michael Connelly, George R. R. Martin, Lee Child. So just wanted to mention that it's a very special group of people every year, and a couple of years ago I was one of them, and I certainly saw it from a different perspective and felt very, very lucky. With respect to the Thriller Awards, that's really special, the banquet every Saturday night at ThrillerFest. Now, sadly, of course, we're not on site this year, but we're going to make a big deal out of these awards because we have some very, very special guests who are going to be introducing and, kind of basically announcing who won each and every section of the awards.
So you don't want to miss that either. That's going to be huge. Those are fun every year for sure. Special guest just umps the ante. It's going to be a lot of fun this year, Kim.
Thanks, Ryan. I'm really excited, and I'm always available if people have questions. You can reach me via the website thrillerfest.com, and I'm always available. My email is on there, so reach out anytime. And I'm really excited and hope to see you all at virtual ThrillerFest, and then next year at ThrillerFest 2021, where I hope that Mr. Steck will be joining us.
That's my plan. Look, I'll end with this. Anyone who can see Kim behind her, when she's not going by Kimberley Howe running ThrillerFest, she is KJ Howe, the author. She's got 2 books out already that follow Thea Paris, The Freedom Broker and Skyjack. If you're not reading her, check her out too.
Thanks so much.